I'm delighted to say that joining us for the first time on the We Are West Ham podcast is a former Premier League ref who took charge of top flight games in England across 3 decades. It's a podcast debutant, like I said. It's Mark Halsey. Mark, thanks so much for joining us all the way from sunny Spain. I've read your comments in the Sun newspaper over the about the Fabian Balbuena stuff. That's what I want to start with. Tom's got some questions as well about Cesar Azpilicueta. You pulled no punches in your Sun column, and it's a great read every time that comes out. It's nice to hear a refreshingly honest perspective from former refs. I really like how the game broadcasters, newspapers have introduced that over the last couple of years. Fabian Balbuena, first of all, just let our listeners know what you made of that before we get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, listen, look, I mean, as soon as I saw the challenge, for me, it was the West Ham defender trying to clear the ball. The ball's there. He's not making a challenge because the ball's there. He's come through. He's cleared the ball, and obviously he's followed through. And he slips a little bit as well. So you look at that, you think, where's he supposed to put his foot once he's cleared that follow through? I know I've heard a couple of ex-players. I think it's Jason Cundy on Talk Sport.
Typical.
Typical. Well, yeah, listen, I have to say, everybody cannot be wrong, can they? I mean, I think you look at 98% of everybody involved in football, that he's not making a challenge, he's clearing the ball. And Chris Kavanagh, he's right there. He's looking straight at it. I don't think he was going to do anything. But what annoyed me was that the VAR, Peter Banks, getting involved, because it's not a clear and obvious error. And we've seen VAR this season being inconsistent at being inconsistent. And for me, Peter Banks should not have got involved, because that was not a challenge. That wasn't a serious foul play challenge that with excessive force and brutality. And listen,
is that the rule, Mark?
If Chilwell hadn't come across to block him, then his foot wouldn't have caught onto the back of his calf. And I just think it's one of those with certain officials knowing the laws of the game, but not knowing the game of football.
You mentioned there, Mark, the laws of the game. Is that what you just said about his foot being raised and violent contact? What is the law or the wording? Are you aware of that?
Listen, obviously the law under Law 12,000 misconduct is a careless challenge is a free kick and nothing else. A reckless challenge is a free kick and a yellow card. And a challenge that endangers a player's safety with excessive force and brutality, whether it's made from the side, the front, the back, 1 or 2 feet, must be sanctioned with a red card. Now, listen, that for me, that didn't meet the criteria of serious foul play. It was just one of those things that happen in football. Like the Southcheck sending off at Fulham. I mean, that was never a sending off, never an act of violent conduct. Yes, he's caught him, but he's trying to get his arm out of the way, from him. And once again, Lee Mason on the VAR should never have got involved. And hence, I think I'm correct in saying that Lee Mason has never done a VAR stint since that incident.
So they do listen sometimes then.
Well, I think so, because there was outcry. I mean, I remember my column. I said if there's any justice in this incident, the FA have to overturn Southcheck red card, and obviously they did. And listen, I think this should be overturned, but you don't know. You don't know who's sitting on that panel. It's a 3-man panel, and it all depends on what way they go, or whether there's been any discussion with PGML over. I mean, I understand that apparently the PGML were happy with the red card, but I do understand that a number of match officials are not happy with the red card, so they obviously didn't feel it was a red card.
Go on, Mark.
Go on, sorry. No, go on, there you go.
No, what? So I really want to get on to what you said there about where, at what stage do we have to start talking about fans not enjoying football anymore, because the lawmakers and the PGMOL, but ultimately the lawmakers have got such a huge responsibility at the moment and on how the game's played and whether fans enjoy it or not. So I do want to get onto that, but just one more on the nitty gritty. You wrote in the Sun after that Chris Kavanagh's got to grow some cojones and stick to his original decision. And, you know, it's not, like you said, it's not just about knowing the laws of the game. VAR, Peter Banks has got involved, etc., etc. What was going through Chris Kavanagh's head, do you think, there? Because he's obviously been called over to the screen. So just talk us through what in his head, because to me, I find you can sometimes tell looking at the refs where when they've looked at the screen or whatever, sometimes they feel a bit apprehensive about going to do what they're about to do. So can you just talk us through what he might have been feeling from when the original challenge happened?
Well, I think perhaps I may have done a bit of disjustice to Chris Kavanagh in that case, because just come to my head then was that, do you remember when he refereed Everton Liverpool? I think it may have been at Goodison Park.
Yeah. Was it the Van Dijk one?
Was it the penalty? No, the penalty. The penalty to Calvert-Lewin, was it when was he brought down late in the game? Right. And VAR recommended a review because initially he gave the penalty, and VAR recommended a review because obviously the problem I think we've got as well is that some referees are re-refereeing the game. So Chris Kavanagh went to the monitor, looked at the incident, and stuck with his original decision to give the penalty. Now, obviously, he was called over to look because VAR felt it wasn't a penalty. So I wonder the conversation that went on with him after that with his management to say, what are you doing? What, you know, perhaps they felt it wasn't a penalty. So perhaps he's got that in the back of his mind when he's being called over. Oh, I'm not going to change my decision, you know, again. So perhaps, you know, I think they work under a lot of pressure because, you know, now when they go across to that monitor, something's going to happen. Something is going to happen. Yeah. So I would have liked to see Chris, as I say, be mentally tough, mentally strong, and look at that and know the game, because you can see it straight away. The ball's there. He's cleared the ball. He's followed it through. Chilwell comes in front of him, and then obviously a contact is unavoidable because he's so close to him. So I would just like to have seen him look at that and say, well, do you know what? No, that's not a serious foul play challenge. That is purely accidental. I know accidental is not in the laws of the game. But obviously Peter Banks felt it was a challenge that endangered the player's safety with excessive force. And, you know, I don't sit comfortable with that. I really don't. And as I said, I'd like to hope that that West Ham get this overturned, rescinded, but I'm not sure because obviously they've already had one rescinded this season, and when you've got
you're on a quota, on a quota, they've all used up their quota already. Yeah.
But listen, listen. I know they don't listen to pundits or especially my comments, because I'm sure they don't like me as I am at the PGML. That's why I'm not involved in coaching our referees. But listen, I really do think it wasn't a red card challenge. Let's just hope that the three-man committee look at that and see it not as a red card challenge. But we just don't know. It's one of those where I was 100% right in that Souček would win his appeal. I'm not so sure with this one for West Ham.
Yeah,
I'd like to think they would, and I'd like to think common sense prevails because it's clearly not a red card challenge for me. So obviously, a lot of these things are subjective.
So that brings me on perfectly, Mark, to my next point. I know Tom wants to come in about the handball as well, but you mentioned subjective there. I tweeted after the game, or straight after the decision. I'm normally quite good at leaving my phone alone until I've simmered down after a game. But
listen, you're not the only one. I've got a very good friend out here who's a massive West Ham fan, and he's texted me straight away. Surely he's not going to send him off.
Well, and I'm normally good at it. Tom. Anyone who follows Tom on Twitter will know he's the hot-headed one among the two of us. But I just tweeted straight afterwards. Balbuena sent off for kicking the football. What total shambles this sport has turned into. What is the point? And what I find, Mark, and I want to hear from you, whose responsibility is it? I mentioned the lawmakers earlier on, because I've found, and I'm very fortunate to work in football as well as be a lifelong West Ham supporter. I have not.
So it's you that threw those eggs at me at Upton Park in the chicken run, is it?
I might have been a bit young. It might have been my dad, but I found not just West Ham, and this is completely, that tweet then is just happened to be watching a West Ham game. I found football this season for me has been far less enjoyable than it's ever been. And I was massively for VAR because what I used to hate, and one thing I do like about football now with VAR, is the glaring, the obvious decisions that usually led to goals against you. I just thought this whole game's a shambles when something so like a blatant 5-10 yard offside. So I found football less enjoyable this season. I can't be the only one. And to be honest, if I didn't work in it, I'd be inclined to, watch far less of it than I have done. Perhaps not get my season ticket, those sorts of things, because it's just the spectacle is not as enjoyable. So that on the weekend, that is what I find. It's been brilliant hearing from you the technicalities of it all. But ultimately, for the fans at home, they're looking at that going, the bloke has kicked a football away and made contact with someone afterwards, and he's been sent off. What's this sport that we all love turning into? Whose responsibility is it, Mark, to stop that and stop young fans being turned off and old?
Well, one thing for me, the last week that's proved and shown to me is that the fans are just as important as anybody else involved in football. Look what the fans have done to get, to oust this European Super League. Absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Absolutely top draw. And that goes to show to me. I've always said it long. The fans are just as important as the players, the coaches, the managers, the clubs themselves. Because without fans, the football's, like you say, you look at every game this season, a lot of them have been like pre-season friendlies because the fans lift the players. The fans lift the intensity of the game. And so for me, the fans are just as important as anybody else. And also when you're refereeing a game, because you've got to make sure, when you went to certain grounds, you had to be at the top of your game. Otherwise, you would get an earful from the fans. You know that. But if you look at the IFAB protocol, for me, it's not VAR. It's not VAR.
I totally agree.
It's the personnel that's implementing it in the English Premier League. It's the leadership and direction from the PGMOL management. That's where the problem lies. That's where the problem lies. And we're seeing so many instances where VAR getting involved where they shouldn't get involved. A clear and obvious error or a serious incident missed. That's when they should get involved. The absolute howler. There's many decisions that are subjective, many. And that's when you don't get involved. It's when, the absolute howlers, that's when they get involved. And they're getting involved far too often than they should. And that is because I believe that some of the referees are re-refereeing the games. That's not what they're there for. So I blame the PGMOL and the management for their leadership and direction of our officials. Listen, we've got some very good match officials. We have. But it's about how you manage your dressing room. So the team of referees are just like the team of players. You're managing a dressing room. And some need a kick up the backside, some need an arm round them, some need a little bit of loving. I know what it's like because I've been under this PGMOL management. I know exactly how they work, and they've not got that managing techniques in their armoury. That's the problem we've got.
That's quite interesting, actually, the way you put it, that you still need to manage them like a squad. I've never
absolutely, and it's no different. Good coaches turn average players into good players into excellent players, and on international players. Now, in refereeing, it's no different with the coaches. It is no different. But we haven't got the our best people helping or coaching our elite guys, and all the way down, looking at progression planning, looking at the young referees that are looking to come through and bring them through. And you can still referee with common sense. You can still referee with a smile on your face. You can laugh with players. You can joke with the players. But when you get that opportunity to stamp your authority on a game, you have to do that. And that comes from the leadership and direction of the management. That's the problem. You've got myself sitting on my backside, not helping with referees. You've got Mark Clattenburg going all over the place, doing things and looking after refereeing in China and looking after referees in Greece. We've got Howard Webb in America doing with the MLS. Now, why? All these guys left the PGMOL. I left the PGMOL. He didn't want me. I asked when I was retiring. I said, "Is there anything I can do here?" Before I went off to do my book, he said, "No, I've got nothing for you," because it's about
this. Is Mike Riley? Is it?
Yeah. Does that fit? That's what it's all about. Does that fit? And it's wrong. It's wrong.
When you say that fit, would you elaborate on that for us, Mark?
Oh, does your face fit?
Oh, sorry. Does that fit? Right, I'm with you. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. So,
but listen, that's the way it is. Listen, we all love football. I've grown up. I've played football. I've supported the team across London for that's where my family brought up in Shepherd's Bush, East Acton. So Super Hoops, that's my team. Come on, you ours. But we all love football. We're all here for the good of the game, and you can understand why fans are getting disgruntled now with. Just imagine all these decisions with fans in the stadium. We heard it on Sunday when some of the fans weren't happy with Paul Tierney not cautioning Laporte. But I can see what he was doing, because he should have cautioned Reguilón earlier on, Sergio Reguilón earlier on for a similar tackle. But he gave both players a chance, and I've got no. For me, that's fine.
No, I was at the game Sunday, the League Cup final, and I thought he was. Brilliant ref. I thought the whole game.
I thought Paul Tierney refereed the game really well. Yeah, they're saying Laporte should have been sent. So could a Tottenham player be sent off for 2 yellow cards, because they were both cautioned in the first half. So and he gave them both a chance in the first half on 2 challenges. What's wrong with that? He was consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Tom, you go in now, because I think obviously we've got. Intriguing to hear Mark's thoughts on the laws and stuff, but you had something to say about the Azpilicueta stuff.
Yeah, Mark, the only other remotely controversial thing on Saturday was the Azpilicueta handball, and it looked like he sort of made a movement towards it with his hand at least, and I know it might have come off his hip, but it's one of those that we saw given last year. We saw given at the start of this season, but it was looked at for 5-10 seconds again, and what was your initial thoughts on that one? Do you think it would have been a harsh one, or do you think that's something VAR should have looked at in deeper detail?
I do, and again, that situation is subjective. My initial reaction was, when I first saw it, I didn't think nothing to it, and then when they see it again, you think, But I thought that would have been very, very harsh had that been given as a penalty. I have to say. It's got to be a deliberate movement of the arm towards the ball. Has to be, making yourself bigger, and having your arms in an unnatural position. So, it's the same as looking at the send off in the game, and they looked at it numerous times. How many times did they look at that instant? And listen, you look at when you look at it at VAR, and the referee goes across. You look at it. You look at it one time in slow motion to see the point of contact, and then you should be watching it in real time. And they looked at that numerous of times, absolutely numerous of times. So if you're looking at that many times, it's not a clear and obvious error. You shouldn't be looking at it. You shouldn't be recommending it for a review. So listen, I think the handball law. Listen, we've had so many goals ruled out this season because of that T-shirt line with the hand with the arm now, because you can score with the top of your arm and your armpit, so that comes into play. So that has ruled out so many goals. It's a nonsense for me. Handball is from the top of the shoulder all the way down to your fingernails. The sooner we bring that back into play, that whole of the arm, forget the T-shirt line, and then we will see a lot more goals scored. And to be honest, I like the new trial that they're going to do out in China, that Arsene Wenger's working with FIFA that if any part of your body's onside, then you're not offside. So I think that would be beneficial for the game. But the sooner we get back to this, the handball, and it will change next season. I mean, we saw Callum Wilson's goal disallowed for Newcastle because it's
heartbreaking.
Listen, there's nothing he can do. He can't get out of the way. But the law says if it comes off his arm accidentally and he puts the ball in the net, he has to be disallowed. That will be the same next season. That won't change. That will not change. Where it will change is if you're in the penalty area, a teammate accidentally handballs it, hits his arm, then falls to Callum Wilson. He puts it in the back of the hang on. He puts it into the back of the net. That will then be allowed.
Brilliant.
What? Ridiculous. It's a farce.
Mark, there was another thing I wanted to ask. Usually when VAR gets pelters from all corners, one of the main suggestions is putting an ex-pro in there or putting someone who used to play the game at the top level as one of the decision makers. What do you think about that? Do you think there's room to bring in ex-pros, or do you think people like yourself and Mark Clattenburg and all the people you mentioned would be better off serving in that role?
Yeah, listen, we were all top referees, weren't we? I think that referees can. I mean, I spent many years training with Bolton Wanderers full time under Sam Allardyce. You know, I had great, good friends with Kevin Nolan. I still text Kevin now. He wasn't happy on the Saturday, I can assure you. And nor was David, because I've worked with David with BN Sports out in Doha, and I've always got on well with David. So he wasn't best pleased either as well, I can assure you. Listen, I think that, we're looking at the standards of refereeing. Yes, I think since, I think it has been on a decline since I think Mike's come into office when he took over from Keith Hackett. But I still feel we've got really good referees, but it's the way you coach and the way you lead them. I think, and also I've got, for me, with the offsides, and I think we should use the naked eye. If you can't tell after first or second replay, then it's a goal. Just like, don't take away the lines. Just like we don't see the lines in other leagues or in the Champions League or in the MLS. They just use the naked eye on the offsides, and they don't get half the problems we get. And also another thing for me is that you've got your active referees and VAR sitting in front of the screen is two totally different professions. And I think, Saturday afternoon, one of the refs is doing VAR, and then he finishes that, and then he's got to drive to wherever he's got to drive in the country and referee on a Sunday. And for me, I think that's too much. So I think you've got your active referees who stay active, and you have a retired pool of top referees doing VAR.
Yeah, and then it gets everyone in the swing of what they're doing, everyone doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And going on to players, I think that, you talk about football players, yes, they will help with challenges and how players go into challenges, where they go in with the correct leg or they go in with the wrong leg. And I think we see a lot of professional footballers in League One and League Two retire early because obviously, it's just the money's not there as it is in the Championship and in the Premier League. We know that. All right, so I'd like to see the way that they do in cricket. Whereas when professional cricketers retire, they take the exam, the umpiring course, and they go straight into second 11 umpiring, and that's where they do their training. And then they get put into the county scene, and then some of them go on to be international umpires. So I would like to see any of those, because it's good. It's not a bad living as a referee. I think the referees now earn more than the guys do in League One and League Two.
What would it just roughly, Mark? What's a ballpark? Go on, sorry.
So before I finish, So I think what they should do, if those players that are interested in taking up refereeing, and there won't be many, because I didn't want to do it, and all of a sudden my mate persuaded me. I think they should do the course, pass the exam, and go straight into the National League. And they do their training and their learning refereeing in the National League, and then move their way up.
Yeah,
not start at the right at the bottom refereeing
Sunday league games,
the dog and duck versus the plough. Do you know what I mean? So you need to accelerate their promotion. I think that you can do that, and we may get a few more ex-pros refereeing. But I mean, listen. You look at Michael Oliver and Anthony Taylor. They've reached the elite level of UEFA. They're in the first, the elite category, and you're earning what I reckon they're earning all their games with the Premier League. 200,000 plus obviously with their bonuses and everything, because you get a performance on and off field performance bonus as well. So I think the top guys are earning quite good money. I mean, I think the basics is around about 100,000 now on the Premier League. That's the basic. Plus you get all your expenses on top. Plus you get your match fees on top of that. So it's not a bad little earner and to become professional.
No. I like what you're saying now. I think, because there's often calls, isn't there, from pundits. I always just think, calm down. You're just looking for more jobs for the boys after the careers for the footballers. I mean, but just one thing, Mark. It's a little bit non-West Ham related, but while I've got you on it, it would be an absolute waste for me not to ask you, because it's a thing I've had in the back of my mind. I was very pro VAR before it came along. As I've mentioned, I was so bored of I felt games were getting ruined by absolute clanger offsides. So I was very for it. The implementation has made it almost impossible to argue for now. What I've always wondered, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, was, and even now, I think what would be wrong with you just have like a tennis style captain or manager's review where each team gets one per half. And you keep it if you get the decision in your favour. So if you appeal it and they say, yeah, you're right, actually, you get to keep it. Or if you don't, then you lose it. And then you only go to VAR on those occasions. So if the captain goes, hang on, that looked miles offside there. And he goes, okay, we'll check it. Yeah, you're right, Mark Noble. So you get to keep your review. Or, no, sorry, Mark, he was offside. We were right. So that's your reviews for the rest of the half. You'd have players would be lots more cautious about when they appealed them, which would reduce the use of when VAR comes in. And you'd only have it used on massive clangers in my head. So I just wonder what your thoughts are, because it doesn't seem to get talked about anywhere.
No, listen, I mean, that'd have to come from the IFAB, and I could never see that happening, to be honest. I mean, you can say that. You say, okay, they have a referral in the 36th minute where they feel it was offside, and then obviously it's proved it wasn't. So they lose that referral or appeal, we should say. And then in the 76th minute, you're winning 1-0, and there's an absolutely howler, an offside that none of them give, and then they go and score. Then Mark Noble can't, and he thinks, that's miles offside, but then he loses his appeal. He can't appeal because he's already used his appeal up. Now, but that for me, just leave it as it is. There's nothing wrong with VAR. VAR is perfect. It's the personnel that are using it. Listen, with offsides, we know it's factual. You're either off or you're on, but we've seen so many incidents this season, where goals, I mean, in my opinion, goals should have been given for that toenail, that heel. Those are the sorts where take away the lines, use the naked eye, and if you normally, you can tell, can't you, in the first replay if someone's a yard or half a yard offside. You can see it straight away. Use those lines. If you can't, like in an MLS, they don't use the lines. Use the naked eye. If you can't tell he's off within the first or second replay, 15 seconds, bang, get on with the game. It's a goal. And I think everybody would accept that in football.
Yeah, maybe. It's just really, it's been frustrating me for all season, really. Just because I think it's used too often as well. But I do see where you're coming from. Mark, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. Wonderful for you to join us. We appreciate you giving us your time. Just quickly then, what would you like to see next season if you were in that the seat of authority and your extensive experience was being utilised far more in the professional game than it sounds like it is at the moment? What would you be pushing for and campaigning for to change about football, Premier League football, particularly as we know it?
Well, listen, refereeing is not a science; it's an art. So it's been the same from when football started all the way up to now. So yes, you can referee with common sense, and it's that leadership and direction of the referees and how you want them to referee. That's one thing. I think another thing, we need a few more coaches, and they're working under an evaluation system at the moment. I worked under that, and I don't like it, and I know the match officials don't like it. So that would go, because you need that personal interaction. This evaluation system, it just tells you whether you're right or wrong. It goes for every decision you make, whether it's a throw, corner, goal kick, foul, non-foul, key match decisions, anything. Just gives you, it's a tick box. That's why I think referees gone the other way. But also, I'd put a lot more into the training education of VAR, because obviously it is upsetting everybody in football. It's upsetting everybody in football. And I would definitely have 2 separate lists, an active list and a retired list. And give them that leadership and direction and the confidence. And everything we do in life is about confidence. Everything we do is confidence. And it's about, as a referee, going out there with confidence. And there's a lot of referees at the moment don't know which way to go.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, for me, is that the referees are relying on VAR too much to come and bail them out if they don't get the correct decision. They're not given decisions when, if VAR weren't there, they would be given decisions. Carry on making those decisions. Give them the confidence to just make those big decisions. And if it's an absolute howler, then VAR will come in and bail you out. I mean, I wished I had VAR when I was refereeing on a couple of occasions, I tell you.
Is it that evaluation system then, by the sounds of what you're saying, it's that takes the ability to have any common sense out? Because if they're just, every decision is just right or wrong per the exact laws of the game, that perhaps, I guess, is why Chris Kavanagh felt, well, that doesn't make for a very good football game or football spectacle, which is ultimately why we're all here. However, I'm going to get if I don't send Balbuena off of that, I'm going to get a downgrading, because technically, per the exact laws of the game, I'm going to get a wrong on my evaluation system, and I don't want that.
Well, that's right. And also, because you get that, if you got the guy that's looking at your evaluation system, you've got that right to appeal, but it never changes, because I know, because I've been involved. It was waste of time appealing on a certain situation. But yeah, I think that does, obviously, if you're getting bad marks from the evaluator, then that drops you down your merit list.
Yeah.
So you're going to do. And listen, it's all. You can still referee with common sense. You can still referee with common sense. It's about going out there, managing the game, managing the players, managing the event. That's what it's about. Yes, you try and referee the game within the confines of the laws of the game, but there are times where you just can't manage. There are times where there are incidents where you just can't manage. And one of those, take the game on Sunday at Wembley. The two with the Tottenham and Sergio and Laporte, those two there. Now, he managed those. And look at the criticism he got from the commentators. Now, why? He's give him a chance. He's told them, next time you do it, I will caution you. And he did. So he was consistent. For me, there's far too many cheap cautions in the game today. Far too many cheap cautions. And that's the problem. That comes from the leadership and direction from the management.
Yeah. It's just interesting. I think there's massive pressure, Mark, isn't there? I think on massive pressure this summer on the lawmakers and the PGMOL, perhaps more than there ever has been before. Because I think I'm not the only one, Tom. You're the same, aren't you? Just fed up of it all, really.
Well, let's get it right. The IFAB have met. And the law changes that are coming in for next season have already been discussed. There'll be no more law changes other than what we've discussed, regarding, the handball situation. So that's the one that will change next season. There won't be no more changes, but that the next meeting will be March next year when they sit down. And so if everybody's unhappy,
pressure on the PGMOL, then, Mark.
What they've got to do, they've got to listen to the fans. They've got to listen to the fans. They're all praising the fans regarding this Super League. Now let's let the fans have their say on some of the laws of the game.
Yeah, you think so?
Bombard the IFAB with all your suggestions. Especially one for me is the T-shirt line is absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I mean, half the goals are ruled out this season have been because of the T-shirt line, because you can score with your armpit or the top of your arm.
Absolutely. It's really refreshing, Mark,
you're not seeking to gain advantage. Also, you point to play the ball in that way, and you go and run, and you get it, and you put the ball in the back of the net. Oh, your T-shirt line was offside because he's pointing to what way to put the ball.
Patrick Bamford, that was earlier in the season, wasn't it?
That's right.
Leeds?
Yeah,
that was. Yeah, and there's so many of those, Mark, where I just think this isn't the game we all love, and I think that's what really worries people. But look, we're about out of time.
But just go. We operate VAR differently to other countries. It's as long as you're working within the confines of the IFAB protocol. Like, last season, our referees didn't go to the monitor because the PGL management didn't want them going to the monitor. Now, the IFAB protocol is that the referee has to make that final decision. So he should go to the monitor. Now, FIFA stepped in and IFAB stepped in, ordering the Premier League that referees have to go to the monitor. That's why our referees are going to the monitor to make that final decision.
Well, look, the game we love, Tom, I think we're both in agreement on this. The game we love, and all of us love, is being sort of ruined and degraded by several factors, but particularly that one at the moment. Just the enjoyment of watching a game anymore has been taken out of it for me. So let's hope that, if it's a bit of a slower process, that it does get sorted. But look, Mark, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. Just about out of time for this section. Former Premier League referee Mark Halsey joined us for the first time. We do appreciate it, Mark, and we hope to have you on again. Hopefully this time to not discussing such a scandalous decision against West Ham. But it's been brilliant having you with us,